In the George Floyd case, just within the last hour, former Minneapolis police officer Thomas Lane has pleaded guilty to a state charge of aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter in George Floyd's killing. As part of that plea deal, one count of aiding and abetting second-degree unintentional murder was dismissed. That's a much more serious charge, bigger penalty. Thomas Lane facing a state trial in June. Tutau and J. Alexander King at this point still going to trial.
Our WCCO legal analyst Joe Tamburino joining us this morning to break this all down for us. Joe, first of all, are you surprised?
Yes, because what Mr. Lane is getting is less than if someone was driving drunk and killed someone. He's getting what's called a departure. That means that the judge has to find mitigating circumstances to go less than the guidelines of 48 months down to 36 months. Very unusual.
Thomas Lane is the officer heard on that video asking Derek Chauvin if they should roll over George Floyd. Do you think that was a factor in this?
Yes, I would imagine it would be a factor because you're quite right. He was the only person to say that he was concerned about Mr. Floyd and maybe they should roll him over. But the question has to be asked. If there are mitigating circumstances in this case that mean he gets less of a sentence, then you have to ask what was the basis for charging originally? Because the Attorney General's office is going from an aiding and abetting murder charge down to 3 years, which means Mr. Lane will serve 2.
And he'll serve 2 in concurrently with his federal charge that he's already serving for in a federal prison there. But Joe, I wonder why now? Is it because he was found guilty in that federal civil rights case?
Yes, I would imagine that the federal conviction does hurt his case here in state court. And of course, when we get to a state jury trial, the jury may know about that federal case. Likely they do. And that could affect the situation. But he's also getting not only a concurrent sentence, he's going to be able to serve his time in federal prison, which is a much better situation than being in state prison.
One more question before you let you go, Joe, and that is, what does this mean for the other 2 officers?
Well, 2 things. Number 1, it'll be a quicker trial because there's 1 less defendant. And number 2, they're not going to have the ability of having Mr. Lane there talk about how he was concerned about Mr. Floyd and therefore was telling then Officer Chauvin to turn Mr. Floyd over. That would be helpful testimony to the other 2, and now they may not have that.
Joe Tamburino, our legal analyst, thank you for that.